Russ Daddy has brought me 2 trucks to turn into one awesome Ford Highboy. He wants it done in 2 weeks. The red Highboy body is just too far gone, so we're replacing it with this super clean 2-wheel drive teal body. I started by removing the bed bolts so that we could remove the teal bed, as well as the red bed. After that, we pushed the trucks apart, removed the bolts holding the front clips on, and removed the teal front clip as well as the red front clip, leaving only the cabs to remove the next day. Now, in preparation for removing these cabs, I'm going to attempt to pull this seat that I believe is just infested with bees out tonight while it's dark and cool out. I'm pretty sure bees are a lot less active at night. I guess we'll find out here in a minute. Oh, that's a heavy seat. Oh yeah, they're starting to come out. They're gonna be right down there in the bottom corner. I'm gonna put them over here. Oh yeah, okay. So there you can see, start to come out of there. That is all nest material right there. Maybe once we're all said and done here, we'll try to cut that seat open, see what it looks like in there. They're not flying, but I definitely got them moving. Oh, never mind, they are flying. We'll see how it is tomorrow now that I move this seat over here. Hopefully they'll just kind of stick right around this seat and not come over by the trucks anymore. They just keep coming. They seem to be getting a little more active. Now it's the next day, and the prep to get these cabs removed, I'm going to pull the seat out of this cab. The only reason I have to remove this one is because I need to pull the transmission cover off of the tunnel here so that the shifter has room to shimmy down while we're pulling this cab up. Now after I pull this cover here, let's tear back these rubber mats and see what our floors look like. We're not going to be using this rubber mat anyways. We're going to leave that out for now. But let's get this piece off and then we'll take a peek at what those floors look like. Wow. Oh, you're gonna need to take a look at this. These floors are solid. Check that out. Obviously we got to do a little cleanup here, but I don't even think there's any pitting. You know, obviously a little surface rust, but there ain't no rust through on these floors. That is amazing. Awesome. Well, let's get to pulling these cabs off. Now I'm going to be moving this frame into the garage. This was a good running truck, but I think we're going to need to use a lot more off of this frame than we originally thought. We're going to be using the engine, the transmission, the exhaust, probably have to use brake lines and all of the wiring as well. We are probably going to have to change the exhaust because I know we're going to have a transfer case sitting right over here somewhere, and I believe that's going to be in the way. That's all right, we'll deal with that when we get to that point. But on this frame, the Highboy frame, I don't know why they put this hook on here, maybe to move it around easier. We're gonna have to cut that off. The wiring looks like it gets cut off right about here. So we're gonna have to, like I said, swap all that over. Brake lines back here. They're going right to the middle of nowhere. Same with this one right here. It's just rusted through, snapped off. And then we're gonna have to go ahead and make sure all of these drive lines and U-joints are all good. I know this one's missing a cap, so we're gonna need a new U-joint there. Hopefully the one off the other truck will work. So I'm gonna move this inside. It's supposed to rain in the next day or two. I wanna make sure this is not out here in the rain, and I can wrench on it under cover. We'll get that seat put back in the cab so we're not have to worry about that getting wet. And then we can start the swapping process. Okay, so today is day 3 on the project here. I already have the engine and the transmission separated from the mounts. We're going to try to get that pulled off. By the end of today, I'd like to have that frame in here to where I can start putting everything on that frame, all the way up to where the engine's mounted in the frame. One other thing I'm going to have to take care of is I have a lot of cutting to do on both frames. Since the bumper on this 2-wheel drive frame is a lot better, I want to use that. And somebody went ahead and welded that to the bottom of the frame. We've got this funky hook that we've got to cut off, as well as all these little brackets, which are not welded, they're bolted, but I'm just going to shave the bolts off, and we'll get all these little brackets that they had put on this frame to mount that other bed. We don't need that with what we're doing. Our bed that we're going to use will bolt right to the top of the frame here. Let's get to cutting. There's the first one. Whoever welded that thing, nice job. Now that everything was cut off, I moved over to removing the engine and transmission so that I could set it to the side and to make a little more room to get at everything else I needed to take off of this frame. We'll get this exhaust removed. I spent the rest of day 3 robbing everything I could off of that 2-wheel drive frame, moved the Highboy frame into here, removed everything off of that as well. We've got a lot to swap over. Pretty much all these brake lines just turned to dust and we're just cracking off at every corner. Some of the U-joints were bad, so I had to rob U-joints off the 2-wheel drive frame. And of course we got the exhaust. I've got the whole wiring harness from the other frame laid out right here. And I even had to go find a new steering shaft as well as a 4-wheel drive shifter, mostly because this steering shaft looked like that. It's basically just not connected anymore. And we didn't have a shifter because that's all that was sitting on this frame. So let's start throwing stuff on here, see if we can get to the point tonight where we can actually set that engine in the frame here and get it bolted on as well. Through the next couple hours, I went ahead and reinstalled all of the lines and wires that I took off the 2-wheel drive frame onto the Highboy frame. And before I knew it, I was ready to reinstall the engine and transmission onto this frame as well, until I ran into a really unfortunate problem. I'm gonna have to pull these headers off because it's not sitting quite right. The header is actually touching now. Yeah. That is a bummer. It would have been cool to use those headers. I think we're going to have to use manifolds or a different set of headers for this application. They run right into this cross member right here. Okay, headers are off. Let's see if we can drop this thing in the frame now. Yeah, there it is. Obviously we're going to have to look for a new set of manifolds or headers. Not a huge deal. It's just a little setback. At least now this thing's in the frame, we can continue on with the rest of the project here. Now before I go attempting anything else, I'm going to get all the drive lines lined up. And to do that, I've got to throw this U-joint in here. I've got them both flush with the ends here now. We just got to get them in a little bit more so we can throw these keepers in. And that's literally all it takes. So now we can throw this drive line in here, which will mate to the back of the transmission. Throw our U-bolts on, and this one will be set. Once this one's on, the only one we really have to do yet after that is hook the rear drive line up to the rear diff, and all our drive lines will be hooked up. Oh man, they sliced into the caps on this one here with a grinder or something, or a cutting wheel. Okay, new caps are on the U-joint here, borrowed from the two-wheel drive as well. Just tightening down the U-bolts, and we'll be done with all the drive lines. Now it's day 5, and I'm not going to lie, I thought I'd be a little farther along at this point. I have to address these rear brakes here. This one here on the driver's side was completely missing. Now the only issue here is the drum goes on the inside of this hub here. And the wheel studs are supposed to go through the drum and then out through this hub. As you can see, there's only 4 studs on here. I could go get new studs, pop all these out, pop them back on with that drum. I do have the drum over there, but I think it's going to be easier. We have another Highboy frame sitting just down the road. I'm just going to go pop that whole hub and drum assembly off of that Highboy frame and use that on here. It's going to be quicker. I don't have to go buy any new parts. Let's get this one off. We'll run over to that other Highboy frame, get that assembly, then we can start rebuilding these brakes and we'll be back in business. There's our axle, we'll get that pulled out. And then we have a couple large nuts in here. Now usually there's a couple tabs bent over the nut. This puppy out. And our little washer. With the bendy tabs. Then we got another nut. And this isn't really the right socket for this, but it does the job. Now we should be able to pop this right out now, and there it is. You got your outer bearing, your inner bearing, and we'll just run over and swap that with the other one. All right, so we're here by the donor frame. Let's get this tire ripped off of here and tackle the whole brake drum deal. This one's got all the lugs here, so we're looking good. I'll throw that other one on here, and we'll be hopefully back in business. Now it is pretty soft here, so I'm gonna have to be careful if my jack starts sinking. I don't want to have any legs or arms underneath this thing, so let's just try to be as quick as we can here, get this all ripped off, and we can move on. Okay, well that was just sitting in there. Now for the big nut again. That one comes off easily. Wow, this stuff's all pretty loose. I think somebody just slapped this thing back together to send it down the road. Russ Daddy had bought this one just as a spare frame. So there she is. And we have what we need. We'll go ahead and throw our other one back on here. Slap all the pieces back in so we don't lose nothing. If we ever reuse this frame, we're gonna have to get back in here again due to what I'm putting on here. And we'll get headed back down the road. Unfortunately, I spent most of day 5 running back and forth to the donor Highboy frame, and it's now day 6. I now have all the parts and pieces I need to finish the rear brakes, and I'm going to spend today finishing that up. I'm really itching to get that body on this frame, so I'm going to jump right on the exhaust after this. Okay, it's day 7. And I need to get this exhaust done. This is about the last piece to the puzzle here. This will be right about where it's going to sit. There's plenty of room for the muffler here. There's plenty of room for the passenger side here. I'll probably just cut this right about where it angles up. It'll come under this transmission cross member. So I think I'll be able to kind of hook that up, route things in a way with a couple little pie cuts or whatever, try to get it to mate up to this. And then this other side, the driver's side, I'll probably have to cut it back here and kind of route it closer to this side just to get around this transfer case here, and then we'll feed it back over using existing pipe, a couple other pieces I have, and just try to get everything lining up. Once I cut this, I'm going to hang the rest of it underneath so it's where I want it to be, and then we can kind of mock everything up from there. What those eyes do. And there it is. Exhaust is on. Should be good. Not the prettiest, not perfect, but it should work just fine. Now the last thing I want to do before I start putting the body on is check all these fluids here in the rear diff. We're looking good there. The transfer case. I may need to add a little bit here. And I've already checked the transmission at the side port right here, and that's looking good. Also checked the front diff. It was a little dry. Had to add some oil to it. We will still have to swap out the oil, and I am probably going to need to get a different oil filter housing for this thing due to the fact that the steering shaft goes right in front of the oil filter here. Most of the four-wheel drive units, the filter actually goes down, not straight out. So we'll have to find one of those. Not a huge deal, just got to get her done. Once I change the oil on here, that's it. Everything else here is ready to go. Okay, it's day 8, and it's time to see if we can get this body on here. It is raining, so I'm going to try to make short work of this. But I'm going to start with the cab. Now we did have to re-drill holes for the rear cab mounts. But it's time to see if we can get this thing on here. Boy, am I excited to finally be installing this body on the Highboy frame. This is a major point in the build, and it gets me all fired up. The cab, bed, and the front clip all slipped right into place flawlessly, and I rolled it back into the garage to get out of the rain and start bolting it down. Now as I go through, start tightening all these body bolts. I usually start with the bed bolts. There's not much adjustability on the bed. That way I can adjust the cab and the front clip to line up with the body lines on the bed. And now for the cab bolts, you can see I've got the cab lined up pretty good on both sides here. It just needs to sink down a little more to line up with this body line, which is perfect because we'll squish down those mounts a little bit once we sink it down. Front cab mounts. And then core support mount. And last but not least, we have these 3 bolts here on the fender supports. And there you have it. Body lines look great. Lined up nicely. Now we can move on to getting this thing all slapped back together, wired up, and hopefully fired up real soon. Not gonna be today though. I'm running out of steam. We'll have to get back at it tomorrow. To kick off day 9, Rust Daddy stopped in to help out and started by polishing the paint. Man, did that come out nice or what? While he was here, we decided to use the extra hand to bleed the brakes out. Ooh. And from there, I moved on to installing the bumpers, finishing the interior, reconnecting everything in the engine bay, installing the headlights, swapping out the oil and the coolant, and throwing on a fresh set of tires and wheels. And finally, we are ready for our first fire up. Technically, everything's hooked up. We should be able to fire this thing right up. Wow. Okay, so that might have been what was left over in the carb. Uh-oh. Just lost power. All right, so I threw a charger on it. Let's see if it turns over here. All right, so definitely our battery is going dead. Let's give her a try again. See if we're getting fuel in this filter here. Oh yeah, we got fuel in the filter. We should be getting fuel up to the carb here real soon. I mean, that's all new. We got fuel in the tank. Technically, it should fire up here in a second. There she goes. There she goes. Come on. Come on. Come on. Yeah, there she is. All right. Seems like my choke's closing up on me. Okay, got a little choke problem here. Let's go ahead and fire it back up, let it warm up. I'm gonna let it run for a few before I pull that screwdriver out of the choke plate there. Let it warm up, see if that choke plate stays open. This choke was never wired up, and it'd be nice if we actually wired it up correctly and got the choke working as it should. Ah, that don't sound too bad. Great oil pressure, about 50 pounds. Battery's charging. Obviously the temp's not up yet. RPMs are at about 1,000. I'll take it. We'll let her warm up for a few and see where we're sitting. Let's do a little brake test and move test. Ah, brakes are working good. I like it. Yes. Oh yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. All right, temp's coming up. We're looking good. We're at about 170 right now. Man, sounds good, looks good. We might be ready to take this thing out on the road. Do a little restart test. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I guess there's only one thing left to do. RPMs right now, and I'm in fourth gear. Speedometer doesn't seem to be reading right either. It says I'm going 70, 75. I'm only going about maybe 30. That's going to be a problem. So we're back in the shop here, and I want to address this issue. Also, we have a leak here. I'm going to have to put a new seal right there. Not a big deal. I'm hoping that things are just kind of froze up on the four-wheel drive shifter here. I'm going to lube these two pins up here and just kind of work these in and out just with a sledge and a pry bar, and hope that maybe things were just bound up there, keeping this thing from going into too high. It almost seemed like it was in halfway in 4 low, halfway in 2. And so I'll kind of work things a bit here, and we'll see. We'll have to take her for another drive, see if it fixes things. I think I got everything situated with the shifter here. While I was down here, I decided let's go ahead and replace this seal right here. So I just got to pop it out. I got a new one over there. Throw that in. Hopefully we'll be leak free after that. Took me a minute. Finally got the old one out. Let's get that new one back in there. New one going in. Just gonna tap it around the edge, get it flush. You gotta be careful here. There's a good chance you can ruin it when you do this. I usually put a little bit of RTV around on the inside there, so when I pound it in, seals any imperfections. Got her all back together, drive lines reinstalled. Let's go for a rip. All right, we're on drive number 2, and it's going pretty good. It looks like that did work with the transfer case. I must have been in low gear on the first drive, so we're good to go there. And the speedometer is reading correctly. Earlier it was not. So it seems to be driving pretty well. No leaks coming from the transfer case. Awesome. What a sweet truck. Sounds great. What do you think, RD?
Pretty sick.
I think this is one of the best colors they had back in the day. What do you think? What was your favorite color? Let me know in the comments. Well, there she is. I've been driving her around for about a week now to try to work out all the kinks. It's been running and driving great. What do you guys think? Did it turn out pretty good? I think it looks pretty awesome. The paint actually came around pretty good with a little polishing. Got a new set of tires on her. If you like this kind of content, do us a favor and subscribe. It helps the channel out quite a bit. Hit that like button. We appreciate you guys watching. I'm gonna go ahead and take some pictures here, and I think that's gonna do it for this truck. We'll see you on the next one. As promised, here's the bee's nest reveal. Oh my goodness. Here, you wanna get this side too? Oh! Whoa. Wow.
Oh my God.
That is an entire bee's nest. The whole seat.
No wonder why there's so many bees.
That is wild.
Don't mess it up too bad. We should hang that up in the garage.
Yeah?
Probably.
Wow, that's pretty wild. Woo!
Stuff.
That's no wonder they kept coming out of there. That was a never-ending supply of bees coming out all the time.
Dude, that is crazy.
That's wild. Wow. Well, there we go. That's quite the bee's nest. And it looks like they're still kind of hanging in there too. So you can see that guy right there.